It's the internet, you're busy, let's do this. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb, for the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is the podcast where each week we pick a couple of topics, we decide everything that's happening in the world of video games, so you don't have to think about it for yourself. With me is Mike Minotti.
Hi.
And Dean Takahashi.
Hello.
And we're going to get right into things here pretty soon. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the news and some games. And then in the second segment, we're going to talk about Cuphead and how we are the best people in the world at that game.
Oh, you don't think we should lead with Cuphead?
Mm-hmm. We could lead with Cuphead. You know what? Let's do. Okay,
I think we should lead with Cuphead.
Okay, let's flip it and reverse it. Let's just go Missy Elliott on this shit. We're going to go with the Cuphead up front.
Audible.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the break, and then we'll come back and we'll do the news and the games. So I guess we could just get right into it, but before we actually do that, I just want to remind people you can get more from us at GamesBeat.com. You can always contact us at GamesPlusPodcast@VentureBeat.com. That's the plus sign. Or on Twitter at GamesBeat or at GBDecides. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you could subscribe to this podcast. There's an audio version. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere where pods are caught. Finally, if you like the show, rate us on Apple Podcasts. That does help people find the show. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go over like what's happened so far, and then we'll get into kind of, I think there's some like bigger topics here that are actually worth discussing, and we'll get into those. But I'm gonna run it down real quick, and then Dean, you kind of jump in and correct me if I'm making any mistakes. So a few weeks ago, you went to Germany, and as part of that trip, you went to the Gamescom industry and fan event in Cologne,
right.
And while there,
Microsoft had a series of demos to show me, and Cuphead was one of those towards the middle of the day. So I took a half-hour appointment for that.
Right, and so so Cuphead was part of that, and you were going there. You were taking a lot of meetings. It wasn't like you weren't just going there to play Cuphead. You were going there to see Gamescom and to meet with other people, talk with the developers, things like that. However, you did play Cuphead, and we posted that. Actually, here's what happened: you played Cuphead along with like Assassin's Creed. You got a bunch of footage, and you came back. And I remember in the chat for work, you're like, "Oh, my Cuphead footage is unusable. It's like so bad." And I thought that was hilarious. So I'm like, "Oh no, you got to post that. That's going to be really funny. I really want to see that." And then you posted it, and I didn't really think about it again until everything went nuts.
A comedy of errors kind of post, and I've told people out on the internet that they don't know me. I've said I've been a tech journalist for 25 years. I've been playing games as a journalist for 20 years, game journalist. But the only requirement in all of that is that I enjoy it. Right, I have fun, and that's sort of the.
Let's go into the background real quick. So what happens is in the video, you played it for 26 minutes, and I think the big thing that most people have an issue with is that in the tutorial, you in the background, it's telling you what you need to do. Like you need to jump and then dash, and there's a box, and you're supposed to jump on the box and dash over this next taller box, and there's like 90 seconds where you're doing everything except for that, and.
Yeah.
And I mean, so what happened there?
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's excuses, they're not no good excuses, maybe.
Yeah. So I was not playing seriously at the beginning. I was not, say, performing, as if I was going to record this and, just keep it forever and post it on the internet and be proud of it. And so I was messing around for a while, where I was just sort of thinking, okay, I'm going to try every possible combination of things. Some of these things I know won't work, but it did occur to me relatively late, within 90 seconds or so, that oh yes, I can actually go up, jump to the highest peak, and at the peak, then hit the Y button and dash over to the thing. I didn't think I could actually dash that far, and so before that point, follow the instructions and dash the top of this block.
Okay, two things about that real quick. Two things. Okay, so I mean, one, I would say that still makes you bad at the game, right? Like you would admit that that was bad.
Yeah.
And then two, like you're also playing at a show, and I think Mike, you would know about this as well. Like when you're at like something like E3 or Gamescom or GDC, and you go to like play a game and you're standing up at a station, you've been like running around nonstop. You're maybe not at your best performance anyhow. So maybe
not your best. You're a lot of times you're talking to the person. You're trying to like do an interview at the same time. And,
you're thinking about your next meeting too. So I think you're bad, and you're also playing at a gaming convention. I think both those things sort of came together as a perfect storm. In a way to make it like even worse than maybe what it normally would be for you playing that type of game.
But I mean, those are excuses for bad gameplay, I think, and so I do have to come out and
it's not your genre either.
I would apologize to everybody because I think they expected more from me, and they didn't expect this kind of video as far as the tone goes. And what I was thinking, which I've done many times in the past, was that this was going to be a funny video as well. That it was gonna make people laugh. And making fun of myself as a gamer over many years has led to many fun stories for me. That it's not the main thing I do. I'm not a comedy guy. I am a
you're a laugh a minute, Dean.
I'm a serious journalist a fair amount of the time.
Well, I mean, okay,
making fun of myself is okay in my book.
All right, here's what I would say though. Me and Mike, we're pretty on the same wavelength. And I think that we actually do think you're like pretty funny. I don't know, it's not like intentional, and it's not like you're a clown or something, but you have a very unique look at like how you play games, and we're always wondering like, man, has he even did he even play like old platformers in the first place? Like, what's your gaming history? Like, did you play a bunch of like Mario and Mega Man games?
Man is basically
whenever Mike brings up Mega Man, you're always like, "What's Mega Man?" to make him mad. But like, how truthful is that? Like, did you ever beat a Mega Man game?
I've actually never played Mega Man. I've played. I'm not a DS kind of guy at all. I enjoy shooters. I play action adventure games. I play mobile games. I do play most kinds of games. Platformers, I brought up Mario in this one because that was probably the last Mario or Super Mario that I play a lot with my kids. Right, so Super Mario on the Wii is something that I do play a lot. And like if you're going back to games like this, like Contra, I've played Contra before, but when it was in the arcades, right? So more than 25 years ago. So that's not something that I remember how to do automatically, right? So if I'm reaching that far back, I might as well have never played it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
again, going into Cuphead completely cold is what I did.
Yeah, and that completely cold from just going into Cuphead, but just playing those types of games in general. Now, I mean, so I think if people aren't aware, if you're listening to this and you have no idea what we're talking about, this is sort of blown up. The video has become a lightning rod for a lot of people who I think want to be angry at, or not necessarily angrily, but want to mistrust journalists, which I think if I saw this video, I did see this video, and I got kind of enraged. I'm like, God damn it, Dean! Like, how can you be so bad at this? But it was at the same time, I know Dean.
It's not meant to make you angry. It's meant to make you laugh. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I also laughed at it too, but that's because I think I had the context of knowing you and knowing that this isn't indicative of your overall gaming skills. Like, you do play complex games. You are capable. Like, I know you put in hundreds of hours into Total War.
Of him playing the new Assassin's Creed, and it's fairly competent.
Yeah, it's fine. It's like you can't tell that that's the same person.
He's not an AI learning machine that we sent out there to play the demo.
Well, that we know of. That we're not still not.
Well, that's actually still debatable.
That's up for debate.
I think and the one thing I don't want to do is be defensive, because I really lament how the whole gaming journalist thing has become so us versus them with a lot of readers.
Right.
So, and I definitely don't want to perpetuate that. The one defense for us is that, we never tried to phrase this as a serious critique of the game in any way. It was always, hey, look, here's Dean, he's bad at the game. The story that he wrote about it, which hasn't been looked at as much as the actual video, but, that's very much just he talked about how he's bad at Cuphead. And this didn't hurt Cuphead in any way, is kind of the important thing here, right? This isn't bad for them. We never attacked them or anything like that. And again, and a lot of people are saying, Dean shouldn't be reviewing these games. Well, he's not reviewing these games. When Cuphead comes out, I'll probably be the guy who reviews it. I have experience with these kind of run and gun games and these difficult platformers. I will, knock on wood, beat it.
And Dean reviewed, Uncharted recently. He does do reviews, so it's not. I mean, people keep saying, oh, he's a game reviewer for a living. He gets paid to do this stuff. And I'm like, well, that's not quite true. Dean's first job primarily is to report on what's happening on the business side of games with some commentary on the games themselves, and then sometimes reviews. We're a small staff, and he's completely familiar with those games and capable of doing that.
And I'm reviewing games at a rate of maybe a dozen a year.
Right.
I'm going to a lot of preview events, but
I mean, you're doing games that you're familiar with in general already. And if you are playing a game for review that you're not familiar with, I like, just for example, if you were going to do the Cuphead review, that would not be our only review. Like, we would do that as, look at this person who is completely unfamiliar with this genre. Does this game do anything for them? And it would be supplemental to maybe to
slice of time sort of preview. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And definitely, we take the reviews seriously. You know, I do apologize to my other fellow game journalists for throwing the entire industry's reputation, out the window with this. I didn't intend for that to happen.
I see that.
But that's unfair, and that's again, this kind of goes back to what I said to this kind of weird, sort of nasty relationship that has developed. Where
I'll point out,
they're looking for reasons to mistrust us or to think that we're not doing a good job. And,
but if you go to the Reddit now, if you go to any Reddit where this is blowing up, or the YouTube comments, there are plenty of people now that are saying this. That argument doesn't really hold water. Like, it is just one data point of just him playing this one kind of game, and to hold even him accountable, to say this is indicative of his skill across the board doesn't work. Let alone that this is somehow evidence of a larger conspiracy of people not knowing how to play games.
I think another way we fumbled was not really remembering the climate. I mean, we were kind of aware because this had happened with that Polygon Doom video and a couple other things, right? And so this was kind of something that was boiling over. It was something we
it was a bit naive for me to think that this would solely be interpreted as a funny video,
right?
Whereas it actually became ammunition for the really sort of angry camp of game people that they feel disenfranchised. They don't get paid to play games. We do. And if we do get paid to play games, we should take it more seriously and have some skill when we play.
Right, and if you don't have the context of your skills or what you do,
I can't argue
I can see you making those links.
The skill part. People keep asking me, why do you do this if you have no skill? Well, my answer has always been, I have fun playing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, skill has there's a basic competence problem that people are doubting here. But I would point out that the context in which this all turned into controversy was very manipulative, right? I mean,
oh yeah, of course.
I post a story. I embed a YouTube video within that story. It's 26 minutes long. The guy who was very angry about this, excerpted the 2.5 minutes of worst possible gameplay, which show no progression. I mean, it doesn't show that I learned anything.
And then he suggests that you're their game reviewer, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at 26 minutes worth of gameplay, it is all pretty bad, but you can actually see a progression.
Yeah,
where,
for sure.
At some point you could say, you know what? I bet you if he continued for a half hour more, he probably could have beat that level.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
and maybe I know this boss is.
Yeah, let's not get crazy here, Dean.
When me and Jeff played this, God, those bosses were.
Yeah, that is true. That was a while ago.
See,
hopefully,
when you
hopefully
play
it's easier.
Co-op, it's actually a far different experience, right? Co-op is actually much more reasonable as far as the difficulty.
I'm not sure if they have any difficulty balancing with that or not.
We can move on from this pretty soon, but I don't want to definitely don't want to linger on the shitlords that are trying to get a rise out of people professionally. I would just say that maybe what do we learn from this to maybe just avoid them in the future.
One thing I do want to say, and that doesn't get lost in this, is look, Dean is a very good journalist. He's very well respected in the field. He interviews a lot of interesting people. It is a shame that people will know his name more for there's people are saying his name more for this than when he was the one who broke that Bungie canceled Titan, right? That was him. These big stories.
Blizzard, you just made a mistake. Now you're going to be known for that, Mike. God, it's all over. No, it's all over.
Journalists.
Yeah.
But
get in the cage, Mike. Get in the journalist cage.
But seriously, Dean has a lot of value to add to this field. We shouldn't run him out of town because
I mean, yeah, if you want to,
and let's make no mistake, he's bad at Cuphead. He's very bad at Cuphead. But I don't
yeah,
think we need to
and
erase him from game journalism because.
and I think that's what I learned is that we need to. When we post a video like that or a story like that, and it comes across as VentureBeat posting a video without any like flavor or voices saying, "Oh, isn't Dean being kind of silly here? Look how bad he is." People can just kind of take that as like, "Oh, this is how you're presenting the game," instead of "This is how you're presenting the player." And I think what we need to do in the future is make sure if we want to do something like this, which I think there is value in doing something silly like this in the future, but if we do that, it would have to be very much make it about Dean, put in a voiceover track where we are either he's talking about it or we're interviewing him while he's doing it and saying like, we don't think this is like the best example of what Cuphead is. It's just his experience. And here's why that is either, maybe that's not helpful to you. Maybe it is. But here's why it at least is entertaining.
I still want to do our Let's Play of Mega Man 3 called Mike Minotti plays Mega Man 3 to save game journalism.
People want to raise the money to make him make Dean beat Dark Souls. So if you're into it, Dean, if you want to help charity.
The one thing that has surprised me is how much life this has gotten. All sort of built on either anger or making fun of me. And I'm okay, with people making fun of me, I think, publicly. The anger is something that
I do it all the time.
I think the game industry and the gamers need to think about more. That is, they feel disenfranchised. They feel like they've got this great hobby, and there are outsiders who keep coming in to cover them, and that the outsiders don't understand them, don't have the skill to evaluate, and yet they're judging them all the time. And I think that's why they got so angry at me here, is that they feel
that's
like
the narrative.
One of these people who's not one of them, right? And so, for that, I apologize because, in that sense, I was tone deaf, right? I wasn't aware of these people.
Yeah, but they don't get to be the gatekeepers either, Dean.
Who agree with the shitlords, right? I mean,
but I mean, you can apologize for missing your tone, I think, and for not speaking to the people there who legitimately feel disenfranchised. But at the same time, no one gets to decide who gets to who gets to be a fan of games, who gets to play them, enjoy them, or even who gets to get paid to write about them. That's something that our company gets to decide. Your paycheck's still going to be in the mail, Dean. You're going to be just fine because the gatekeeping is just sort of a bullshit smokescreen to justify a weird culture war. I mean, I don't want to make this us versus them. This isn't us versus gamers. It's us versus this weird outside element, the real outsiders that are sort of leeching onto the justified disenfranchisement of gamers to fuel this weird battle of progressivism, where people want to see a better world and want to be feminist and see about women to be able to come to this industry, things like that, and a backwards thinking troglodyte group that just wants to hold things back and sees gaming as a good vessel to get their message across.
I mean, I also think that more people actually should get paid to play games, and that
it
shouldn't be an exclusive club. And that's one of my big sort of crusades now, I guess, is that there are ways for game companies to figure out how more people can enjoy all the benefits of gaming and get paid for it, and just like all the streamers out there, the Twitch people, the YouTubers, the esports players. It's like, why can't we all get paid to play games?
Well, I could tell you what one of the comments said. The reason that all people can't get paid is because it's controlled by the Jews, guys. That's what this comment said on the internet. And I realized Jason Wilson's our boss, so maybe there's something to that.
Let's not go that way.
So what we really all learned is that Cuphead is the Dark Souls of Mario's, right?
That's right.
That's what I've been sort of made fun of for displaying, I guess, in such a horrid way.
And I think there's...
I do think some of these commenters have been very interesting. Like, there was one guy who said, why the hell did you post this? And, I said, this is the reason. I'm surprised at all the mean comments. and actually turned around and apologized to me and said, I'm sorry, I've never said anything that mean on the internet before. Something about that video just brought it out.
People are always like on the internet, right? People will say things that they wouldn't say to this person in the face, and when they're confronted with them, they rethink it. Yeah, let's Dean's bad at Cuphead. He's
And that's
not
okay.
reviewing Cuphead. We're sorry about that. We're sorry if you were upset by that, but don't worry, nobody was hurt by it. Dean's very good journalist. Let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think the last point I'll make is that people say you can't post this because it'll hurt the game, and
it doesn't hurt the game.
First of all, it doesn't hurt the game. Second of all, we can't take that into consideration. People want ethics in games journalism. That was always the battle cry of that group, and deciding not to publish something because it might hurt a game. We can't make those decisions. We can't say that's the line we're not going to cross because that would actually violate ethical boundaries. We have to say our own experience. We can't make things up or hold things back to protect some product or some people. Unless we are actively trying to hurt it. That's not what was happening here. Dean was just talking about his experience, and that this is what happened. I don't think Dean never thought, even before after posting that video, I don't think he ever thought like this is something. This is like a complete failing in the game. I think since then some developers have come out and said, this is actually useful. But we've seen someone who completely misses all the cues and completely misses the instructions in the background, and they don't get it, and you can use this to make a better tutorial. So there's an argument to say it's actually going to be beneficial and could end up making Cuphead better in the end. I don't know. That wasn't our intention either, but yeah, we can't just take it.
Cuphead's going to be just okay, everybody.
I think so.
I think everybody's going to watch for any change in the tutorial now.
Yeah, I'll be looking for it.
That'd be great if they should just make the tutorial person be Dean now.
It's like the Dean Takahashi version of the tutorial.
Oh, that'd be great if the difficulty modes in that game were just like hard, medium, and Dean.
Yeah, we would have to recuse ourselves at that point from actually reviewing it, Dean. Way
to
go! No. Yeah, we can still write about it.
We have to make Dean play Dean mode.
Yeah, that would be great. Now that would be good stuff.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to a break. We will be right back. During the break, I'm gonna tell these guys, Dean, Mike, don't talk. It'll be like 30 seconds. We'll be right back.
Whether developing, playing, or simply hosting games on a server, Intel makes it happen. And Intel wants to make sure the biggest innovations in gaming continue to happen on the PC by giving developers a hand with the Intel Game Dev program. All you have to do is sign up, and Intel will provide the resources necessary to help you continue to innovate and make gaming even more amazing. Head on over to the Game Dev program at software.intel.com/gamedev to get started. Again, that URL is software.intel.com/gamedev.
Okay, we are back, and what we're going to do now is we're going to get into some news and what we've been playing, what we've been up to. Why don't we kind of start with you, Dean, since we've been harking on you with stuff that you're not good at. Have you been playing any games that you are good at?
I wouldn't say good at. I've played games that I've enjoyed, which would include the new Life is Strange episode. I played that. Almost done with Knack 2. Played Hellblade, and I played Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So it's actually been a pretty busy playing month.
Let's start with Life is Strange. Did you play the first season?
I've just mostly watched it.
Okay.
It was almost just something that seemed to me more fun to watch.
Well, but you've played the first episode. That's the only one that's out so far of season 2. What do you think?
I think season 2 is very interesting in that it goes 2 years earlier. It is still about these high school kids and captures a lot of the teen angst, but it's almost more trying to hook you in on the relationships between the teens, friendships between two girls, and all the pressures that are on them in high school and during that time. And it doesn't have, so far at least, any of that supernatural stuff that was in the original, where you could rewind time and relive decisions that you thought should.
It's a prequel, right? It's a prequel so that it takes place before those characters get their powers, right?
Yeah, the character Max isn't in the game too, and she's the one
Okay.
with the powers. So it's her best friend that essentially feels like for a period of time Max abandoned.
Dean, can you make sure you talk more into the mic?
Okay, so yeah, it was about the main character isn't Max, it's Chloe, and Chloe feels abandoned because there's a period of time where Max isn't around, isn't in her life, and she's just having a hard time. And she meets another very popular girl named Rachel, who turns out to be missing in the later, say, the original game that happened 2 years later. And it's just a very interesting interplay. So I like it.
Um, yeah, it's something I might check out. I have the first season. I still have never played it. Mike, have you ever touched these games?
No, I have not. I don't do much episodic story-based games really in general. I was like the guy who kind of like got really sick of the Telltale thing pretty quickly, and
You're
that's
a
what
bad
this
person.
reminds me of.
Yeah.
It is a little easier to play than Cuphead.
I would hope so. Did you still fail a tutorial though?
No,
Oh,
no,
damn
I
it.
didn't. I didn't actually need one for this.
All right then. That's it's a completely baby mode game. All right, I like it. I like the sound of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about Hellblade as well. What do you think about that?
Hellblade was, I rated that a 95 out of 100. I haven't done that in a long time for any game. And I believe, so much in what the developers tried to do and what they actually pulled off, which was to really create this portrait of a woman warrior who was going insane. And how she made this, sort of figurative journey in the game into the Norse version of hell to recover her lost love and to bring him back from the dead. Um, and and then sort of the psychological parallel for that is her journey into madness and to the utter depths of despair, and her ability or lack of ability to see out of this nightmare world into what's really happening. So all along, you kind of wonder in this swashbuckling game whether or not what she's doing is really happening or if it's all in her imagination.
Right.
She's truly insane.
This is also like much more story focused than mechanics focused, right? I mean, I know it's got action, character
It
action,
is,
combat.
but they did a very interesting part in the gameplay where they have you play as Senua and you see things as her. And if you actually look at some puzzles in the landscape, if you look at the landscape in a certain way, then you actually see like things like a hidden door or a hidden pathway. And so these things come back and reinforce that the things in the gameplay reinforce that what Senwa sees is what no one else can see, right? And so again, it's like, is it real? Well, it certainly gets you through the game, or is it all in her head, right? And it's interesting how they bring the gameplay into reinforcing the main question of
This is one that I'm like hesitant to pick up because for me, these very story heavy games are hit and miss, and I haven't finished near like even the first inning of near Automata yet. So I want to finish that, and then maybe I'll use like the $30 I got from selling items in PUBG to pick up this. We'll see.
the game. Jesus.
We'll see. Yeah, I know. I'm making bank, man. I got to put it back
Apparently.
into the economy.
I mean, I also liked it because the sword fighting was pretty hard to master, and you could fight the same kind of enemies over and over again. But if your timing was off, then you wouldn't hit, and you'd get killed. So you'd have to start over.
You've also been playing Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So is Mike. What do you
Yeah.
guys think? You guys are huge Uncharted fans. I understand that about you. What are you guys
I beat
thinking?
I beat it. I was actually really impressed. I kind of like was lowering my expectations for it just because I didn't know what to really think of it as this weird kind of DLC, kind of standalone expansion, kind of its own game thing. And I was really impressed by how big it actually was. How one of the cool things about the Uncharted games is that they all kind of take you to different places. It's a bit of a travelogue thing, right? You like the Uncharted 4 is very piratey. Uncharted 3 was kind of this Arabian sort of, or, T.E. Lawrence thing. And this one is all in India. So for me, it's like, oh, I'm kind of learning about Indian mythology. This is fun. And you're like, Shiva. She's not just a Final Fantasy summon. God, cool. It's not a she at all. So yeah, but it was really cool. And the neat thing too is like this one section of the game they kind of do what Uncharted rarely does, and they kind of made it an open world area for a bit. It wasn't a big one. It's only for this like maybe a third of the game, but for a bit there you can kind of go around, do things in any order. You have a Jeep, you can ride around it. You literally have a map. There's like these little mini objectives you can do if you want to. I was like, hey, this is actually pretty cool.
Do you guys think that's indicative of what they're doing in the future? And go ahead, Dean.
Oh, the Jeep was the funny thing in Uncharted 4. You had this great Jeep, but you couldn't really roam around with it. You
No,
were always driving upward through a jungle, and it was like a horrible waste of a Jeep, I thought.
It was more of a kind of just like linear. I mean, they did some cool things with it, but it's much more like there's a road you're going down. Yeah. Maybe there's a fork in the road that's going to come back to the one point for the next thing to trigger. Yeah,
but the Lost Legacy at least has this large open level where you can really take off with that.
And it's fun.
And is it like, so it's better than not having like just the path with the Jeep? Like once you're in a vehicle, you want to drive around, or is it just different?
I think it was cool that it was different. I don't know if it's better. Like probably one of the big set pieces in Uncharted 4, right, was like that Jeep chase. You're Jeep kind of going downhill. Yeah. And that's really cool. And there's nothing like that in this. This is more just like you're using it to drive around and stuff. And I think both are interesting. I do think that this is definitely them testing the waters with some more open level design. I think we'll see some of that in Last of Us 2 and whatever their next thing is going to be.
I had a couple of beefs with it. On the one hand, it wasn't as big as Uncharted 4, and so in that sense, it was a bit of a letdown experience from the best of what Naughty Dog could do.
Well, were you expecting that, like just because?
No, I mean I wasn't expecting it,
but you're still
there was a shortness to it that I thought, maybe I'm only three-fourths of the way through the game, and in fact I was almost done.
And that's just because you're used to what you played before.
And there were repetitive sequences that I've played before in Uncharted games, and I wish that I had more brand new set piece like experiences.
Right. And without being talking about spoilers, the kind of end of the game is a callback to a famous Uncharted set piece. Now, I was kind of excited about it because it was like my favorite Uncharted set. It's like one of my favorite levels in a game ever. Right. So I kind of thought it was cool. I get what you're saying. It definitely, and I think that's what makes it not Uncharted 5, right? Is that it is a lot more of, it's kind of more Uncharted 4. There's some things that are different. You have the different characters, and that's fun. You have this one open area. But again, that's only a third of the game. And when it's not that, it's very much Uncharted 4 kind of stuff. But we have a different setting and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. The last thing that I thought was a bit off was, all of the history of Uncharted, it's been criticized for basically trying to rip off Tomb Raider, right? But you always had Nathan Drake.
Yeah, I think those criticisms have fallen off after a bit.
Yeah, a male version of Tomb Raider, and now you have a female version of the main character, and it sort of seems more like Tomb Raider. And I kept thinking, well, the reboot of Lara Croft and this character don't seem different enough to me. I did like, at least the relationship between the two characters.
Right, and I mean, to me, even more so than maybe like the fact that they're both similar characters, is that the one thing that made the new Tomb Raiders kind of different was that they were a bit more of an open design. So it really was like, this is kind of feeling like those Tomb Raider games a little bit, even more so than usual.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are very good games, especially that latest.
Like I said, they definitely took plenty from Uncharted, so that's fine. But yeah, I mean, as a big Uncharted fan, I had a lot of fun with it.
Let me just ask, and then Dean, I can't remember your last one. I'll get to that after I ask this question. Not a big Uncharted guy. I liked 4. Yeah. I've tried to go back and play the older ones a couple times. They've never stuck. Should I do it? Should I play this game?
If I like 4, you have like 7 hours, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I tell you what.
It's 10 for someone who's as unskilled as I am.
Right, of course, yeah.
it's still like going to be the best looking game you probably play on your PlayStation 4 this year.
Right.
That's
Okay.
the funny thing, right? It's like it's
Mhm.
absolutely gorgeous. I don't know what it is about Naughty Dog, but it's like they make the only PlayStation 4 games, maybe Horizon a bit, where I'm like, oh man, this looks great.
Right.
Maybe the only console games anymore, because almost anything else I'm like, oh, this looks a lot better on PC, or
Yeah.
this would look better on PC. Like I never think that while I'm playing a chart, like, oh, if only this was on a computer.
Yeah, it is amazing how they're capable to do that. I think a lot of that's just the art. Okay, Dean, you had one last game that I can't remember. What else were you playing?
Oh, Knack 2.
Oh yeah,
Knack!
Knack 2.
I'm feeling the knack attack, boys.
Yeah, Knack's back.
Got that knack itch.
It's fun. It was a lot of fun. And,
Did they knack it out of the park?
It was, it was definitely very easy to play. Right? I didn't feel like I got stuck
What?
anywhere.
I heard the first one. I never played the first one, but I
Mm-hmm.
understood the first one was like weirdly hard. Was that not true?
It was. That's what I thought about it. Although, God, now I'm like terrified to call a game hard anymore.
I think that was common. So I think that was a relatively common.
Please tell me that people agreed with me.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not what I thought. Like, I'm sure I could have beat it, but it was kind of hard and it wasn't that interesting. I was like, eh.
So, Dean, did they tone it down, or was it like
well,
legit easy, or what?
There's a joke in Knack 2 about like all you have is 3 attacks. And that was sort of making fun of the first game, right? And so the variety of gameplay experience, or what you could do with the original Knack, was a big lesson for them. And so they stuck in a lot more things you can do, as far as like punching really far, or grabbing somebody with a hook and pulling them in close and punching them. So just a variety of fighting skills that you had to pick up was more entertaining here. And it also looks a lot better. And then, you're going around smashing things for a lot of the game. And that's always kind of a thrill.
That I'm not sure. If I could play it co-op with my buddy Mike Minotti, I would pick it up in a second.
We had a lot of fun playing
We did.
it at E3, man.
It was the end of a long day, and we kind of sat on the couch before the Sony thing. We played it at their pre-Sony E3 Blitz like party. And that was cool. I actually really kind of dug that, but it's local co-op only, so we'd have to like test out and see if that that screen
Anthony
sharing thing
reviewed
would
it
work.
for us. I think he gave it an 80, and he was somebody who was skeptical about it because he really didn't like Knack 1 very much. It seems to be the general consensus that if nothing else, it's definitely a lot better than Knack 1.
Right, and I'm not surprised. I'm glad to hear that.
You can grow to like 30 feet tall in this game, right? But there's always something bigger than you, and so the nice thing to remember is that you can actually shrink to little tiny Knack.
Oh, yeah.
Just when you're about to get hit, and then you can blow up again and take a punch. And
See, that's like really neat.
As Qui-Gon Jinn says, there's always a bigger fish, guys.
Man, I'm like, I'm telling you, man, I got that Knack attack.
Is someone knocking at my door or one of your guys' doors?
Not me.
Okay.
Ignore them, Jeff. They're not important. Like
Yeah, I'm
us.
going to ignore them. Okay, so let's see, Mike. You had another game, Metroid: The Return of Samus.
Metroid.
How's that going?
Or is that the Samus Returns? Yeah, it's never mind. Return of
closest
Samus was
window.
the first one. I
Yes.
gotta fix this now because I'm weird like that. Yeah, so the Metroid game for 3DS. So the preview embargo is up for it, so I could kind of talk about it. Tell you what, man, it sure is nice to be playing a new 2D Metroid game, and it is that. Like, I know you were kind of almost a little worried about this, Jeff, at E3. Like, you were trying to
I
talk
was.
yourself out of it.
Hang on. Talk to Dean. I got to go get my baby. I'll be right back.
Oh god, that's what the knocking was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
Dean. Finally, I
gotta-
can talk to Dean about Metroid.
We can talk for the next hour while you're just busy.
Well, just me. Oh my god. No, I want to talk to Jeff about Metroid. What else have you been doing?
Metroid. So,
Have you
yeah,
played Metroid?
once in a while, never all the way through. I check them out. I don't really get into them.
Yeah, I got kind of crapped on very early on in my game journalism career. I was the guy who liked Metroid Other M, which is the one for Wii that everybody hated. And I still defend it a bit, although looking back, I definitely understand the complaints because it did this thing where Metroid is very good when it's kind of this solitary, sort of almost lonesome experience. And this was Metroid with cutscenes and lots of talking, and a lot of people didn't like the way they portrayed Samus as kind of being anything but just a complete badass all the time. And I think it's okay to try to fleshed out her character a little bit, but there was definitely weird that like Samus was terrified of Ridley, like one of the big boss characters. When at this point in the franchise, she's beaten him like a dozen times, what have you. So, and that was 2010. That was the last time they made a Metroid game. So like I think a lot of the resentment also came from this kind of idea that as other MMOs killed the series, because besides that, the only Metroid game we got was that really weird Federation Force for the 3DS that nobody played.
That's like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare for me. Like I was one of the few who gave this such a good rating, and everybody else wanted to hate it. And I thought it had a nice story.
Remember me and Jeff were screaming at you at Game of the Year time. I actually regretted not playing it just so I could tell you were wrong. This year, I'm playing Call of Duty World War II this year, just so I could talk you off the edge when you want to make a Game of the Year.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
It's enjoyable, and more so than Infinite Warfare. So I played the beta of that too recently. So.
I didn't touch that beta. My problem with shooters is I'm pretty much always just playing Overwatch every day still. So a lot of times I see shooters. Hey, look who's back with a baby.
Hey, baby. Hey, Emily. Hello.
Jeff, we're back.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, we're back. Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
I was just going to redeem with the history of Metroid and other M and why it's a big deal that Metroid's back and stuff like that.
So the preview embargo is up. Is it? But you said it's good.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So I think the only this is kind of like Uncharted Lost Legacy, where I was trying to like prevent myself from getting too excited about it, kind of because they were the way that they introduced it out of nowhere, right? Like we had no idea this game was coming, and they didn't even review it on their big E3 stream. It was just done on the Treehouse, kind of quietly, and then also you see the videos and it uses the 3D polygons in a 2D plane thing. It maybe doesn't look that good. But like a lot of 3DS games, it looks a lot better when you're actually playing it on the system itself than when you're looking at it on a video. And man, it just really feels like you're playing like, something like a Super Metroid, or at least a Metroid Fusion, right? Like, oh man, it's a 2D Metroid game. This is completely new to me. And Metroid 2 on the Game Boy is actually one of the few games in the series I haven't really played, so I'm not sure how similar it is to that. But my gut reaction is not very, because it seems like it just has a lot of these new stuff. And some of it's really cool. Like you have this kind of counter mechanic, right? Where all the enemies will maybe charge at you and they'll flash for a second, and you can counter them, and you can just start shooting right back at them. So it makes the combat really interesting that way. You can hold down the L button. Like you actually move with the analog stick. You can't use the D-pad. And at first that seems like a bad thing. But when you hold down the L button, you can do the 360 aiming thing, which is really neat. So like you could just kind of stand in place and just shoot all around you and get like this real precision aiming that you just couldn't do in Super Metroid or Metroid. Like in Metroid Fusion, a lot of your aiming is like shooting diagonally and like walking back and forth trying to get them. Now you can plant yourself and just aim in all those directions, stuff like that. But I mean, more than anything, it's 2D Metroid, man. It feels so great to be playing this. It's just all that stuff about Metroid. That's great.
And you're happy to get the 3DS out again and to play it. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm happy about it,
right,
but it's fine.
It's fine.
There is definitely still that part. Like, couldn't they made it look a little better and put it on the Switch at this point?
Yeah, I was realizing our thing last week about the Mario spinoffs. Most of those games were on handhelds, and it makes me wonder if those kinds of games aren't going to really show up anymore because of the Switch.
I hope not. Yeah, we kind of talked about this before too. Like,
yeah,
there are all these great Nintendo games that are kind of these portable things, and I hope that stuff doesn't just end because they might not really have a quote unquote portable system anymore. That's still kind of something we're going to learn about in the next couple of years once the DS brand is really dead.
I will definitely be picking this up, I think. So I'm excited.
For sure. If you have any love for Metroid, there's no reason not to.
I'm curious about Mario and Rabbids.
We've been talking about this the past couple of weeks. I've been putting in some more time with it. Mike, you reviewed it. Have you picked it up at all since? Is there anything to do afterwards?
There are things to do afterwards. There's a lot of challenges. There's a new game plus, but I have so many other things to play that I kind of moved on.
So what I've noticed is that I'm really loving the battles. I think that it just keeps getting better and better. Your movement capabilities get more. They stack on top of one another, so that makes them more complex. but it's never like overwhelming. It's easy enough for Dean, I think. Dean, you should play it.
I like strategy games. So.
Yeah, you totally do.
It's my kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you would like this. My big complaint, though, and it's not really big. It's just kind of like, man, what this is weird. Is all the stuff you do between the battles, especially the block moving puzzles. I don't get why that was the thing that Ubisoft settled on as like this is going to be the big thing you do, like to break up the action of the combat. It's so like rote and standard and expected, and it doesn't like call back to anything from Mario. It doesn't call back to anything from the Rabbids. It's just this weird like video gamey puzzle thing that they just put in there to have something else to do, and I just think it's a bummer. It doesn't ruin anything. It's just a bummer. So yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me outright, but they definitely weren't like, oh boy, another one of these.
Yeah, it's like I mean, I'm never. Yeah, you're right. I get it to them, and I'm never like, oh, this sucks. This is terrible. It's just, it seems lazy, is all.
It's a little fillery.
Yeah. Other game I've been playing is Absolver. This is like that third-person fighting game. I'm kind of just been in the single-player mode, but it's Dark Souls in the way that other people can invade your world, and suddenly you're fighting against another real human. And it's cool. I was trying to play with mouse and keyboard. I think I'm going to have to switch to controller just because everything worked except for dodging. Like to dodge and to duck and to jump, you have to lock onto a character and then move the mouse up and down and left and right. And that never feels quite... It's never as responsive as you want. So,
just not as skillful as I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm fine for shooters and stuff where I'm always moving the mouse in that way, and I'm always thinking about it that way. But when you go from like moving the camera to then having to do swift movements with the mouse, like to do a precise jump in a fighting game, I think the controller would have the advantage. So I'm going to switch to a controller and see how I feel about the game after that. But yeah, nothing else really. Like I said, Steam Marketplace, I've been selling some stuff on there and not making a ton of money. Like I've been making some of my money back. I bought some of those crates and keys during the PUBG Gamescom thing. So it was pretty interesting to see how that worked and actually realize that like this is a kind of a fun way of interacting with other players and stuff. It might be gambling. I don't know. My baby's mad. She thinks I'm going to spend all our money on crates and not feed her
Daddy,
anymore.
why can't I go to college?
Well, I wanted a mini skirt. So in a digital mini skirt. Your dad's very, very weird. Okay, let's hop into the news, guys, and then call this episode. So let's jump right in with the first headline. Secret of Mana 3D Remake gameplay was revealed. This is basically a complete remake of that first Secret of Mana, which I think came to the United States as that Final Fantasy Gameboy game, right? Final Fantasy Adventures?
No, incorrect.
Okay.
Incorrect.
I don't know. I don't know RPGs. Mike, you just tell me.
No, the first this game has a Japanese like Seiken Jatsu or something like that. The first one came out here as Final Fantasy Legends. Yeah, Final Fantasy Legends, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it was recently remade for the Vita as like Legend of Mana, or not Legend, something like that. Heroes of Mana, something like that. Maybe it was Final Fantasy Heroes or something like that. So yeah, they already remade the first one. This is the second one. This is the one that came out to Super Nintendo as Secret of Mana. And then there was a third one for Super Nintendo that we never got. So they already remade the first one, and now they're kind of remaking the second one with pretty similar style with what they had to that. I don't know how I really feel about like remaking the first one. I think was a good thing to do because it was a Game Boy game. It was pretty basic. A lot of people aren't going to play an original Game Boy game as it looked back then, or even like Link's Awakening. You're going to play the DX version of that, which has some colors. But Secret of Mana was a really pretty looking Super Nintendo game. Maybe this is just my nostalgia glasses, but I like the way those games look. I like the way Secret of Mana looks in its original form.
Wait, so are you saying that you're not happy with the 3D visuals, like the remake of the visuals?
No, not really. I think it just looks like I think I'd rather have like what was high-end, beautiful 2D pixel art from the early 90s than low-end polygon graphics that could be in almost any like mobile game.
Moving on, every game announced during the Nintendo Switch Indie Showcase. I'm going to click on this link. This is from a little website called GamesBeat.com. And
I heard those guys are bad at video games.
They are. They have the first one here, Super Meat Boy Forever. So yeah, right there is a game we're not allowed to play, not allowed to touch that. So Nintendo did this whole showcase of like all these indie games coming to the Switch, And it was pretty exciting. There's Super Meat Boy Forever. There's this. Oh God, we're getting an auto-playing ad on our site, which I'm going to destroy. God damn it. Who do I have to talk to
Don't
make
get
that go away?
Don't get distracted, Jeff.
Shovel Knight, King of Cards.
Yeah,
so Shovel Knight
Knight.
gets a card game, isn't that? I mean, that's legit, just a card game, right?
No. It's like the card game is a mini game in the full
all right,
campaign
cool.
where you play as that character. It's going to be incredible.
All right, that actually is really cool. I love King Knight. He was always one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be like Plague of Shadows, except like Final Fantasy VIII, you have like this card game you can play with people if you want to.
Yeah, and then Mom Hid My Game, which was a mobile game, and now it's coming to Switch, which I think is pretty interesting. That's where Nintendo is also getting games from.
That's what Super Meat Boy Forever is too. It's basically a mobile game. So
it is. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's an auto runner.
Okay.
And there's kind of there's already talk that mobile version of Final Fantasy 15 they're making that might even be a Switch game at some point. So we're seeing. It's funny because like we're not seeing 3DS games coming to the Switch, but we're seeing mobile games coming to Switch.
Right. Yeah, and they're coming from third-party indie developers, but still, that's interesting. Hopefully, like this Golf Story, the next game on the list, which my baby's excited for. This is like basically Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color that we were talking about last week. And I think if this game can like do well and show Nintendo, hey, these kinds of games would be really excellent on here. They can look old and they could be small, but they can kind of have a lot of gameplay and a lot of fans. I can't wait for this game. It comes out this month.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
I think the thing about the mobile developers getting onto the Switch is very interesting. I talked to this guy Chris Kasoke in Germany about his Handy Games company, and he said he was doing 11 games for the Switch. One was, and a bunch of them are, they're mobile game developers for the most part, and they're sort of finding it easier to convert these titles over to the Switch than to other things. And so I thought that was kind of nuts, but he's got one, Aces of the Luftwaffe, that's coming soon. It's like small development company making lots of games for the Switch.
Yeah. Speaking of small, there's a bunch of other smaller announcements, but then there was also stuff like Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition. It's going to have all the episodes included in one package. That's coming to the Switch as well as other consoles. SteamWorld Dig 2 got announced, or got a date. I'm sorry, that's coming out this month. A lot of people looking forward to that. Morphe's Law. I thought that was a cool looking shooter where like you go in there as it's a team based shooter and you shoot an enemy, and if you shoot them in the arm, for example, their arm gets smaller and your arm gets bigger, which makes you a bigger target. So it's like this weird balancing act that I thought was really smart.
And the No More Heroes one.
Yeah,
right?
Travis Strikes Back. I
don't
really
know a whole lot about other than that. It's like this interesting collaboration with indie games, and so far the two that they've I think announced are Hotline Miami and Shovel Knight. So really neat.
Yeah, I want to see how that works. I wonder if that means it's going to be like a kind of a mini game collection or a micro game kind of thing where it has these other indie games built into it. We'll see how that works. I think the only things I would mention is that I am wondering about Wargroove, which is that Advance Wars like sort of a fantasy thing. Yeah, I like that didn't show up, and neither did what was the other big Stardew Valley. And so we don't have dates for those, and they're not really talking about it.
I really want Stardew Valley too.
Yeah, and I think I've heard, and this is I think secondhand information that I could probably confirm this if I looked, but don't take my word for it. Is Stardew Valley is in certification with Nintendo, so it could be out very soon. So let's hope that's the case. I don't want to wait too much longer. So yeah, that does it for the Nindy thing. I think it was a really good showing. I think indie games can often be like, you could take them or leave them, but the way Nintendo is presenting them, it's like, oh, this is a really good reason to own that system. Let's see, a couple more headlines. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds sells 10 million copies, 2 million in the last 2 weeks. That's a lot of copies. Good. Yeah,
I think they've got something there.
Yeah, maybe. If they just keep at it, maybe they'll get somewhere. I think it was Matt Piscatello from NPD who said, like, we're beyond a point where we can compare this to anything else. There is no comparable other release that is even similar to help us give guidance to like what this game can eventually do in terms of sales. So it's just going to keep getting bigger, and it's hard to fathom.
I saw long lines for the Xbox One version of that when I was in Gamescom in Germany.
Yeah, I believe it. I know a lot of people are very excited to get their hands on it. I bet that's going to be a huge hit on Xbox as well. Minecraft Marketplace creators have made $1 million in the first 2 months of that program. So this is their program where they let community creators build like add-ons, sort of mods, and then sell them to other community people. And then Microsoft shares that revenue with them. So far, the amount of money that Microsoft has paid out is $1 million. This is I think this is like actually one of the things you were talking about, Dean, where like, you know, developers and publishers can find ways to make sure more people are making money to play games.
Yeah, getting paid to play games.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see where these terms are going to go, like what percentage of the take goes to the company versus what take goes to the gamers. Like Roblox is going to pay out $30 million to their creators now. They've had their platform going for quite a few years now, and the company still takes about 70% of it, though. So,
yeah, exactly.
when you get more competition like this coming, that might have to change.
Yeah, and Microsoft says it gives the majority. It hasn't ever specified the exact numbers, but it says it gives the majority to the creators after Apple and Google and whoever else, Nintendo eventually, once that gets up and running on Nintendo system, once they take their 30%. So,
yeah, those guys are always taking their tax.
Yep, 30% every time, always and forever. The last story here, GameStop used FooVR to make some commercials where they basically put digital versions of actors inside of Destiny 2. If you guys don't know, FooVR is the thing where former tested editor, he was in the games industry for a while, covering it as a journalist. Will Smith, he started FooVR, where it enables him to create this basically this recorded talk show where he puts on the headset and his software will track the movements and the audio and basically create animated version of himself that he can then play back in VR, and you can put on your headset and join him while he interviews the developers of Firewatch, for example, and you're inside the game while he's talking to them. And it was very interesting, a very cool example of what the technology can do. He has now sort of shifted. He's done the pivot to video thing. He's taken that technology and he's enabled it to work for like TV commercials, where it can just create little animations that are very quick to make. They're less expensive than traditional animation. And I thought it was very interesting to see that this VR technology, where it is now getting used to create other kinds of art and other kinds of products. And it just kind of shows like there's a lot more to this tech than maybe we were first realizing, and other people that are going to figure out how to use it and to survive while we get through this. Oh, you got something to say?
The VR desert. Everybody has to figure out how to.
You have to get to the other side of the desert. Yep.
Repurpose their technology for other things.
That's right. And I think that's going to do it for news. You guys got anything else worth talking about from this last week?
Nope.
How about you, Gooey?
Well, my apologies to my colleagues for bringing down game journalism.
I think you're just fine, Dean.
I think it's fine. You're giving Reddit a laugh anyways.
Yeah, at this point, I think most people are kind of over their rage and they're just kind of enjoying the bad video. And if you are mad, that's okay too. You're allowed to be.
You're
There's
mad,
nothing
you
wrong
come
with that.
yell at us.
Yeah, for real. We're okay with that. Yeah, exactly.
We're fine.
We get it. So I think that's going to do it for us. Before we go, though, I want Dean. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they do want to yell at you? Don't give your address. Just your your Twitter.
Dean Tack on Twitter is a good place. You can send all of the Dean should be fired messages.
And then how about you, Mike?
I'm at Tokoto on Twitter, TOLKOTO. I also do the Exploding Barrel podcast every week with my brother. That's at edpodcast.com. And I'm always on GamesBeat.
Emmeline's a big fan of the Exploding Barrel podcast, aren't you?
I know she is.
She listens to it in the car when Daddy drives.
Okay.
And I am Jeff Grubb on Twitter. You can get me there. I do some videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. We also run the PUBG Family Dinners on Friday, where I live stream a bunch of games industry professionals, developers, media people, music composers. And we all play PUBG together and try to hurt one another, and it's very entertaining, and often we open it up to the public, so if you're watching on Twitch, you can hop into games with us and shoot people like Super Meat Boy composer Derry Baranowski or whatever. Join us for that. And I think that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank you, everyone, for joining us. And just remember, we are the Cuphead professionals. Yeah? No? All right. Thanks, guys.